He never thought that one simple encounter could change his entire life. The day he met her seemed like fate itself. She walked into the room with an effortless charm, her smile bright, her laugh contagious. From the very first moment, he felt something stir inside of him. At first, it was just conversations that flowed naturally, dinners filled with laughter, long text messages sent late at night. It was easy, too easy. For the first time in years, he felt wanted, seen, important. Soon, their casual meetings turned into dates, and their dates turned into a relationship. Those first months were everything he had dreamed of. They took weekend trips together, filled their social media with pictures that screamed perfect couple, and whispered promises about the future, marriage, a house, maybe even children one day. She looked at him in a way that made him believe he was enough, more than enough. He couldn't help but fall deeper every day. But slowly, quietly, almost invisibly at first, things began to change. She started hanging out with new friends she'd met at work or through mutual acquaintances. He didn't think much of it at first. Everyone is allowed to have their own life, their own circle. But soon, she was coming home later, wearing perfume he hadn't noticed before, dressing up as if every night was an event, but not for him. Their intimacy began to fade. The kisses were quick and distracted, the sex rare and mechanical, as if her body was present but her mind somewhere far away. He noticed, of course he did. He tried to talk to her about it, to reach for her hand when she seemed distant, to ask gently, "Is everything okay? Are we okay?" Her responses were cold, dismissive. "You're imagining things," she'd say with a sigh. "You're overthinking. Don't be so insecure." Each time, her words silenced him, not because they convinced him, but because he was afraid. Afraid of pushing her further away, afraid of confirming the very thing that haunted him at night. So he forced himself to believe her, forced himself to swallow the knot in his throat and pretend everything was fine. But the truth always finds a way of bleeding through the cracks. Her phone became an extension of her hand, always face down on the table, always locked tightly, always guarded. She would laugh at messages she didn't share with him. She was constantly busy, constantly out with friends, but somehow he was never invited. He began to lose sleep, tossing and turning, battling the war between his heart, which still loved her desperately, and his mind, which whispered that she was slipping away. And then came the night that shattered everything. It was past midnight, and she was sleeping soundly beside him. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, drowning in doubts. His hand trembled as it hovered over her phone on the nightstand. He knew he shouldn't. He knew that once he opened that door, he could never close it again. But the need to know, the desperation to confirm what he already feared, was stronger than his restraint. With shaking hands, he unlocked her phone. The truth hit him like a blade. Conversations with a man she had sworn was just a friend. An old ex-boyfriend who had somehow slid back into her life. There were flirty texts, intimate words, pictures she had sent him late at night, pictures he thought were meant only for him. Plans to meet, to escape together, declarations of passion. His stomach twisted, but it didn't stop there. In her group chats with her friends, the betrayal cut even deeper. She mocked him, laughed at him. She wrote about how boring he was, how tired she was of their relationship, how she didn't even know why she was still with him. She called him pathetic. She said she felt nothing for him anymore. Reading her words was like being stabbed repeatedly, each sentence tearing another piece of his heart apart. He sat in the dark, the glow of the phone screen illuminating the tears streaming down his face. He didn't move for what felt like hours. He already knew the truth, but seeing it written so clearly destroyed the last fragile hope he had been clinging to. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't insecure. He was betrayed. The next morning, when she woke up, he couldn't hold it in anymore. His voice was quiet, broken, but firm. He told her he knew. He had read everything. The messages, the photos, the jokes she made at his expense. He waited for her to deny it, to cry, to apologize, to at least show a flicker of guilt. Instead, she looked at him with cold eyes and said only one thing. "You had no right to go through my phone." That was it. No explanation, no regret. She shifted the blame onto him, as if the real betrayal was not her infidelity, but his discovery of it. That morning, their relationship ended. There were no tears from her, No desperate attempt to hold on. Just a shrug, as if the years they had spent together meant nothing. And then came the final twist of the knife. Within days, she was posting pictures with him, the friend, the ex who had become her lover. Smiling, kissing, holding hands in photos with captions full of love and passion. To the outside world, they looked like a couple madly in love. But to him, every post was another reminder that he had been replaced, discarded, erased as if he had never existed. His life unraveled. Work no longer mattered. Food lost its taste. Nights were endless, filled with memories he couldn't escape. He replayed their conversations in his mind, wondering where it all went wrong, what signs he missed, what he could have done differently. He saw her face in every corner of his apartment, heard her laughter in the silence of his empty rooms. He hated her. He loved her. He wanted her back. He wished he'd never met her. The contradiction tore him apart. Friends tried to reach out, to drag him back into the world, but he pulled away. He wasn't the same man anymore. The betrayal had changed him. The weight of it crushed him, dragged him into a spiral he couldn't escape. And in the quietest moments, when the world around him slept, he admitted the bitter truth to himself. He regretted ever meeting her. Because no matter how beautiful the beginning had been, no matter how intoxicating those first months of love felt, the ending had poisoned everything. The story of them was not a story of love, but of destruction. Sometimes, the worst thing that can happen to a man isn't losing someone he loves. It's realizing that the person he loved never truly loved him at all. He met her during what he thought was the lowest point of his life. He had just lost his job, bills were piling up, and loneliness was a weight on his shoulders. Then she appeared, not like a storm, but like a light. She was kind, attentive, and she seemed to care about him in a way no one had in a long time. Her laughter was disarming, her touch comforting. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt alive again. At first, their relationship was built on small, tender gestures. She'd bring him food when he was working late nights at a new, low-paying job. She'd hold his hand when he doubted himself. When he felt like a failure, she whispered in his ear, "You're more than enough." And he believed her. She became his anchor, his reason to wake up in the morning. Slowly, he rebuilt his life with her by his side. He got a better job, a better apartment, and he felt proud, not of himself alone, but of what they were building together. Their love seemed unshakable. They traveled, they planned a future, they spoke about marriage as if it were inevitable. He adored everything about her, her quirks, her flaws, even the arguments that ended in laughter. For him, she was the missing piece he didn't know he had been searching for. But one day, without warning, the air between them shifted. She started spending more time at work than she ever had before. She claimed new responsibilities, late meetings, urgent deadlines. She began to dress differently, more polished, more alluring, and he noticed she always checked her reflection before leaving. When he asked about it, she smiled and said, "I just want to take care of myself. Isn't that what you want?" He nodded, though unease gnawed at his chest. The changes were small at first, almost unnoticeable. She texted less during the day. She laughed less at his jokes. She seemed distant during dinners, her mind wandering elsewhere. He told himself it was stress, that she was overwhelmed. But then intimacy faded, replaced with excuses. "I'm tired. I don't feel like it. Not tonight." What used to be passion turned into a wall he couldn't climb. He started to feel her slipping away, but he clung tighter. He bought her gifts, planned dates, tried to rekindle the spark. She accepted them politely, but the warmth in her eyes was gone. The harder he tried, the further she drifted. Then came the signs he couldn't ignore. A message notification that made her smile, though she quickly turned her phone face down. Phone calls she took in another room, her voice hushed, almost nervous. Nights where she came home late and smelled faintly of cologne that wasn't his. He noticed, but his heart resisted. He didn't want to believe it. He couldn't. One night, desperation outweighed trust. He waited until she fell asleep, then unlocked her phone. What he found shattered him. Dozens of messages with her boss. At least that's who she called him. But the tone of their words left no doubt. This wasn't professional. Flirty remarks, late-night confessions, secret plans. And then the photos. Pictures of her, intimate ones, ones she had once promised were only for him. His stomach dropped. His chest tightened. It got worse. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was cruel. In messages with her friends, she mocked him. "He's so clingy," she wrote. "I can't wait until I move on for real. He's just safe, but I want more." They laughed about him behind his back, as if his love was something pathetic, something to be ridiculed. He sat in the darkness, shaking, reading every word until the screen blurred with tears. He felt like he was suffocating. Everything he had built, every dream, every promise, all of it was a lie. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't even look at her the same way. The next morning, when he confronted her, his voice trembled with both pain and rage. Her reaction was cold. No tears, no apologies. Instead, she folded her arms and said sharply, "You had no right to go through my phone." Not a single word about the betrayal. She didn't deny it, but she didn't acknowledge it either. As if the problem wasn't her lies, but his discovery. That was the end. He told her to leave. She packed her things without a fight, without a backward glance. It was as if he had never been a part of her life at all. Days later, he saw her social media. Photos of her with the man she swore was only her boss. Smiling, holding hands, kissing in public. He realized she hadn't just moved on. She had been living a double life long before he discovered it. And now, she flaunted it shamelessly, as though to erase him completely. The betrayal consumed him. His appetite disappeared. His job performance slipped. Friends tried to check in, but he pushed them away. Nights stretched into endless hours of torment. He replayed everything in his head. The first time they met, the trips, the laughter, the promises whispered in the dark. Had it all been a lie? Did she ever love him, or was he just a placeholder, a stepping stone to something else? He saw her face everywhere. In the quiet of his apartment, her laughter echoed in his mind. He still loved her, and that was the cruelest part. He hated her, despised her for what she had done, but part of him longed for the version of her he had once known. That version was dead, but his heart hadn't caught up with the truth. As weeks turned into months, his life spiraled downward. He isolated himself, drowned in depression, and sank into a silence no one could pull him out of. Every memory of her was poison, yet he couldn't let go. He regretted meeting her, regretted giving her his trust, his love, his soul. Because sometimes the most painful lesson in life isn't losing someone you love, it's realizing they never loved you the way you loved them. He thought he had his life figured out. He had a steady job, a small circle of friends, and a quiet apartment he liked. He wasn't wealthy, he wasn't flashy, but he felt content. That all changed the day he met her. She walked into his world like sunlight through a stormy window, sudden, warm, and blinding. Her presence was magnetic. People naturally gravitated toward her, but she seemed to notice him in a way no one else had. At first, it was subtle. A shared smile at a coffee shop. A conversation that lasted longer than it should have. Her eyes held a spark, a curiosity about him that he had never felt before. Days turned into weeks, and soon, their meetings became a routine he looked forward to. She listened when he spoke, laughed when he joked, and for the first time, he felt genuinely seen. They fell in love fast, the kind of love that overwhelms, consumes, and blinds. The world seemed smaller with her in it, safer somehow. Every weekend they spent together was filled with long walks, late-night movies, and endless conversations about dreams, fears, and everything in between. He introduced her to his friends, she introduced him to hers, and slowly their lives began to intertwine. But life rarely stays simple for long. At first, the cracks were small, almost imperceptible. She started spending more time out with her friends, new acquaintances he didn't know. Her phone became her constant companion. Sometimes she would laugh quietly at a message, and when he asked who it was, she smiled but didn't answer. "Just a friend," she would say, brushing it off. And he believed her. Then came the subtle changes in her behavior. She started dressing differently, not just casually stylish but deliberately alluring. He noticed the perfume, the jewelry, the careful attention to her hair before leaving. He wanted to trust her, so he convinced himself it was harmless, that it was normal to care about how you look. But the distance grew. The dinners he prepared for her were eaten quietly, without the warmth they once shared. Touches that had lingered suddenly vanished. Intimacy became rare, mechanical. He tried to confront her, carefully, gently. He asked about the late nights, the distant texts, the new friends. Each time, she offered excuses, sometimes rolling her eyes, sometimes sighing heavily. "You're being paranoid," she said. "You're imagining things." And he wanted to believe her. He needed to. The thought that she could betray him was unbearable. So he ignored the gnawing feeling in his chest and clung to the version of her he loved. But some truths cannot be ignored forever. It started with small signs, a lingering cologne that wasn't his, a lipstick mark he hadn't noticed before, whispers in the middle of the night that didn't make sense. Her phone was always face down. Her laughter sometimes sounded stolen from him, meant for someone else. The tension built slowly, gnawing at him, keeping him awake during long nights. Then one night, the impossible happened. She fell asleep beside him, her breathing even, her presence deceptively calm. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. The temptation was too great, the need for truth overwhelming. He reached for her phone. His hands trembled, every instinct screaming not to do it. But he couldn't stop himself. What he found broke him in ways words cannot describe. A hidden relationship with a man she claimed was just a friend. Not a casual flirt, a full-blown affair. Messages late at night, planning secret meetings, exchanging photos meant for him but sent to another. And it wasn't only that. She mocked him mercilessly to her friends, laughing about how gullible he was, how pathetic, how easily manipulated. He felt every word like a physical blow. The discovery was a hurricane in his chest. The next morning, he confronted her. Voice trembling, eyes burning, he laid out what he had found. He expected tears, apologies, even a hint of regret. Instead, she stared at him coldly, unwavering. "You shouldn't have gone through my phone," she said, as if that were the real crime. No denial, no remorse, just indifference. And in that moment he understood. She didn't care, and she had never truly loved him the way he had loved her. The breakup was sudden. She left, unbothered, packing her things without a backward glance. He sat in the empty apartment for hours, staring at the walls, trying to comprehend how someone who had meant so much could vanish so completely from his life. Weeks later, he saw her on social media, already entwined with her new lover, a man he hadn't even met before. They posted pictures together, smiling, holding hands, traveling. Their joy was loud, careless, unapologetic. Each post stabbed him again, reopening wounds that hadn't yet begun to heal. His life spiraled. Work became meaningless. Food tasteless. Sleep impossible. He withdrew from friends, isolated himself, consumed by the memory of her and the betrayal he could not erase. He thought of the first time they met, the promises, the laughter, the love he had believed in so fully. Had any of it been real? Or was he just a placeholder until someone better came along? Months passed. His health began to decline. His spirit, once bright, became a shadow. He would walk the streets at night, replaying every word, every glance, every small sign he had ignored. He hated her. He loved her. He wanted revenge and forgiveness all at once, but neither could be claimed. He regretted meeting her, regretted opening his heart so fully, and cursed the day their paths crossed. And yet, even in the depths of despair, the memory of her lingered. Her laughter, her smile, the way she had made him feel alive, it haunted him. He wanted to forget, but forgetting would mean erasing the part of himself that had loved so deeply, and he wasn't sure he could do that. Sometimes, he thought bitterly, the cruelest betrayals aren't about losing someone you love. They're about realizing that the person you gave your heart to never loved you in return, and that for them, you were always replaceable.